Hey guys, Sean here. Welcome to the F1 Word and to the weekend debrief for the 2018 Russian Grand Prix. So it was a weekend that was pretty much dominated by Mercedes, and Lewis Hamilton took another huge step towards his 5th world title, but it wasn't without its controversy. But before we get on to any of that, let's start by having a look at the race result. It was Lewis Hamilton who took victory for Mercedes, with Valtteri Bottas coming home in second place to complete a Silver Arrows 1-2. It was the two Ferraris behind, with Sebastian Vettel in third and Kimi Räikkönen fourth, but to be honest, the Scuderia never really showed the pace that was expected of them this weekend. It was a great recovery from Red Bull, as I'll talk about a little bit later on, with Verstappen coming back to 5th and teammate Daniel Ricciardo in 6th. Charles Leclerc had a solid weekend, as did Sauber, as he came home in 7th place, with Kevin Magnussen behind in 8th. And then it was the two Force Indias of Esteban Ocon and Sergio Perez who rounded out the top 10. Romain Grosjean missed out on points. He ended up 11th place in the race, with Nico Hülkenberg in 12th for Renault. Marcus Ericsson, of course, started inside the top 10 but ended the Grand Prix in 13th, with Fernando Alonso in 14th. Lance Stroll was 15th in his Williams, just ahead of Stoffel Vandoorne in the McLaren, with Carlos Sainz having a miserable day down in 17th, and Sergei Sorokin at his home Grand Prix only managing 18th. And there were just 2 retirements from the Russian Grand Prix, with Pierre Gasly and Brendan Hartley both retiring early with brake problems. So as you saw there, then it was Lewis Hamilton who took the win yesterday, but that win has caused a bit of controversy and has divided the F1 fan base. Yes, team orders have reared their ugly head once again. Look, I'm taking absolutely nothing away from Lewis for his win. Yes, many will argue that it was handed to him by Valtteri Bottas, but if you look at the weekend as a whole, without the mistake on his final run in qualifying on Saturday, he would likely have been on pole position, as he was quicker than Bottas to that point, and they were both very well matched for pace during the Grand Prix. So it's not as if Hamilton was considerably slower than his teammate, and he was right in the fight for the win. But the question is, were the team orders really necessary? And I suppose that's something that's open to individual opinion. I mean, F1 is a team sport, and team orders have and will always be a part of that. There's no getting away from it. But Lewis had a 40-point World Championship lead. Sebastian Vettel and Ferrari, although close on track at the time, had never really shown the pace over the course of the weekend to beat Mercedes, and it was fairly early in the race as well. Plus, it's not as if Bottas was massively slow, and he even had more pace to give. In fact, the Finn said over team radio that he would have gone faster the next lap, so he was clearly holding back. But Mercedes are adamant that they had to make the call in order to protect the win, as they felt Vettel was too close to Hamilton and was a threat. And speaking to racefans.net, team boss Toto Wolff said, "We told them that they can race each other, just be careful with each other. Remember the situation we are in for the championship, the drivers and the constructors championship. We also told Valtteri that if everything panned out and we were running 1 and 2 at the end of the race, then we would leave it like this, unless we felt under threat from Vettel. We were a lap too late with Lewis, and I take it on me because I was engaging with James in a conversation when I should have made the call, and in this way, Lewis came in a lap too late and lost position. Lewis worked hard to get past Sebastian. He did an awesome move but blistered the tyres, and then we were in a situation with Valtteri in front with fresher tyres, Lewis behind with a blistered rear, and Sebastian all over Lewis." Now Lewis Hamilton says that he did not want the switch to take place, and has revealed that he was waiting for a call from the team to switch the drivers back towards the end of the race. Hamilton said, "Honestly, when I got the call that they had said that to Valtteri, I don't know if you heard me, but I just said, tell him to speed up. They told me on the radio that Valtteri is going to let you go, which is not what I wanted. I just said, tell him to speed up, because I had Sebastian on my tail and it was getting quite close. Naturally, passing him didn't feel good in that instance, and I don't know what was planned for the end. I was waiting to get some news or something like that. I knew that the team wanted to end that way. They had made that call." The Brit also described how he has never, quote, "finished first and felt the way I do now." And it was clear on the podium and in the post-race press conference that neither driver was completely comfortable with the team's decision. And in that press conference, Valtteri Bottas said, "Yeah, difficult day. Obviously, a good result for us as a team. We got maximum points. But personally, as everyone saw, it was quite a difficult race. We always go through all the scenarios, all the facts. Lewis is now fighting for the championship and we are fighting for the constructors, so we always have a plan. It's always difficult to predict what's going to happen in the race, how it is going to go, but it is what it is. Once I got close to Max, we knew he was going to go long. I obviously had a long stint ahead of me. So there was no rush. I was managing really. Then I got instruction from the team to close the gap to Max and try and overtake, so I was getting closer, and then I really started to push a bit more. Then I got the call to swap places, and that was that. Okay then, so I don't like team orders and I make no secret of that at all. But I totally understand why teams use them, and also understand that they are part of the sport and always will be. It is a team sport at the end of the day. But as I've already said, in my opinion, although I get why they did it, I think it was unnecessary. Lewis has got a big championship lead anyway, and was going to extend it. And for me, it never really looked as though Vettel was ever a threat to the team's 1-2. But ultimately, the team kept that 1-2, and were able to help Lewis open up a 50-point lead over Vettel. So obviously, Bottas aside, it's win-win. But of course, they are just my views and my opinions on it all, and I'm sure there will be many different views from different F1 fans. So let me know what you thought about the Mercedes team orders in the comment section down below. One man who has given his views on the team orders is Sebastian Vettel, and the German has leaped to the defence of the Silver Arrows, calling their decision a no-brainer. He stated, "Well done to both of them. They played together as a team very well. In their defence, all the questions, I know you guys love controversy, so therefore ask naughty questions to them as individuals, but I think in the position they are, it's a no-brainer what they did today." But let's leave it there on team orders and move on. But I am going to stick with Sebastian Vettel though. And the Ferrari man is adamant that despite falling a huge 50 points behind Lewis Hamilton at the weekend, he is not out of the title fight just yet. And here's what he said after the race. "I'm clever enough. I wasn't a genius in maths, but I was clever enough to pay attention to make out for myself that it's not getting easier if we lose points. We had to be third and settle with that for today. I still believe in our chances. Obviously, it's not getting bigger if you finish behind, but who knows? It takes one DNF and then all of a sudden things look different, ideally two, which I'm not wishing on Lewis, but you never know what happens. So we need to stay on top of our game, which maybe we haven't been completely this weekend. Make sure that from where we are now, we focus on winning the last races." There is no denying at all that 50 points is a huge gap, particularly with just 5 races to go. It would need to be one of the biggest swings or twists in F1 history if Seb is to win a 5th world title. But although I would be stunned if Vettel were to be crowned world champion at the end of the season, particularly from the position he's in now, he is right. Mathematically, it isn't over. There are 125 points still up for grabs, and it does only take a DNF and maybe a sloppy weekend from Mercedes to open that fight up again. But equally, Vettel cannot afford any errors. He has got to beat Lewis Hamilton every single weekend now. And it's okay saying things like, "I can still win," but he needs to be delivering on track and he needs to be doing it now. Before I get on to my driver of the day, where I will also talk a little bit more about Red Bull, let's jump into the race rundown. It was a sudden end to the race for both Toro Rosso boys after brake issues saw both Pierre Gasly and Brendan Hartley spinning within the first 5 laps, with both drivers describing how the brake pedal, quote, "went long." A bizarre situation really, given that according to the drivers and the team, both cars suffered the issues pretty much simultaneously. Franz Tost has also confirmed that obviously the team will be investigating the issue ahead of the Japanese Grand Prix. On a more positive note though, the team boss did say that Honda's new upgraded power unit was a big improvement. But there was a scary moment for Pierre Gasly during the race, the Frenchman revealing that he was hit by a piece of debris from Daniel Ricciardo's Red Bull during the race, with it hitting his helmet's visor. And that is something we will be discussing more during Wednesday's livestream. It was somewhat of a frustrating day for Force India in their race-long battle with the Haas of Kevin Magnussen. Despite appearing to show more pace than the Dane, the Pink Panthers couldn't get the move done, and they themselves even resorted to team orders to try and get that job done. After several laps chasing Magnussen, Esteban Ocon was asked to move aside to allow Sergio Perez to have a go at passing the Haas. However, the Mexican also failed to do so, with the team then swapping the drivers back and they crossed the line 9th and 10th. It was a double points finish, but the team felt they could have had more. As mentioned in the race results, Sauber had a surprisingly strong weekend across the board, particularly with Ferrari-bound Charles Leclerc. The youngster won the midfield battle after a brilliant and ballsy move around the outside of Kevin Magnussen at turn 3, and after that move he was never really challenged and brought home some big points for the team. Marcus Ericsson wasn't able to capitalise on his P10 start and never really delivered the pace to be able to challenge for points either. It was a disappointing weekend for Renault. The team of course sat out Q2 on Saturday in a bid to give them a free choice of tyre strategy for the race, but despite a long first stint and running as high as 7th, Nico Hülkenberg was unable to convert that strategy into points. His teammate Carlos Sainz had a very frustrating day following contact with Sergei Sirotkin at turn 3 on the first lap, which the Spaniard says broke his side pod and floor, which of course would explain why the pace was not there for him during the race. It was a solid weekend from Kevin Magnussen as he helped Haas close the gap to Renault in the battle for 4th in the Constructors' Championship. As mentioned earlier in the rundown, the Dane, who was very racy all day, had a race-long scrap with the Force Indias and managed to hold them off to take a well-deserved 8th place. Despite that though, Magnussen says that the car didn't have enough pace and that it was a tough Grand Prix. Not as tough as it was though for his teammate Romain Grosjean, the Frenchman crossing the line of course in 11th, and stated that he was very disappointed with the result, but did add that he felt as though he ran a good race. It was a very poor weekend for McLaren as Fernando Alonso came home 14th and Stoffel Van Dorn 16th, with the team describing the race as lonely. The team failed to show any pace or competitive performance all weekend, and Alonso said that 14th was the position he deserved based on the pure performance of the car. Van Dorn added that the result was more or less what they expected, but did say that the early race fight with the Williams drivers was, quote, a bit of fun. And finally, in this rundown, Williams once again struggled as they have pretty much all season, with Paddy Lowe describing it as a really frustrating afternoon. Again, as you saw in the race result, Lance Stroll ended the race in 15th place and blamed the tyres, which he described as really bad, for leaving the team having to switch strategy and move on to the soft tyres earlier than planned. And Sergei Sirotkin finished 18th and last at his home Grand Prix, and the Russian said that he felt that the race was the most painful of the year so far, adding that right from the start, everything went wrong for him and the team. On to my driver of the day then, and Max Verstappen won the fan vote. And I agree, he was my driver of the day as well. He started the race down in 19th place and drove brilliantly to recover to 5th. Okay, as many are pointing out, he does have comfortably the 3rd fastest car on the grid, and so the result shouldn't be a surprise. But come on, credit where credit is due. At the end of the day, he was up to P5 by the end of lap 8, and was aggressive and calculated in every move he made when coming through the field. And after starting on the soft tyres, he ran very long and showed some very impressive pace on those tyres, despite the fact they were considerably older than the ones on the cars around them. It was just yet another example of how the Dutchman has matured this season, and he continues to impress, as did the whole team over the course of the weekend. In the build-up to the weekend, they were talking down their chances and expected to struggle, but they did show some seriously solid pace, and if practice is anything to go by, showed that they would have been right in the mix without the penalties they had to take. Of course, Daniel Ricciardo also came back very well through the field to finish in 6th place, albeit 49 seconds behind his teammate. But much of his lack of pace versus Verstappen during the Grand Prix could be put down to the damage he had to his front wing. But ultimately, their obvious pace over the midfield aside, it was a great recovery from the Red Bull boys, and a fantastic drive from Max Verstappen, very deserving of driver of the day. Before I go then, let's have a look at the championship tables. Lewis Hamilton remains top of the Drivers' Championship, now 50 points clear of his nearest rival, Sebastian Vettel. Valtteri Bottas moves up to 3rd place on 189 points, 3 clear of Kimi Raikkonen, who drops to 4th. Max Verstappen extends his lead over teammate Daniel Ricciardo, with the Red Bull boys sitting 5th and 6th. Kevin Magnussen moves to the head of the midfield with 53 points, the same as Nico Hülkenberg, the two of course separated based on best finish. Fernando Alonso though is still just 3 points behind them on 50 points, he sits 9th. And then 3 points further back is Sergio Perez on 47 in 10th for Force India. In the Constructors' Championship, a big weekend for Mercedes sees them extend their lead over Ferrari, with Red Bull remaining in their very comfortable 3rd place. Renault are now just 11 points clear of Haas. That battle is going to spice up very nicely between now and the end of the season. But McLaren in 6th place will be looking over their shoulder as Force India continue to consistently pick up points. Just 23 points between the two of them now. Toro Rosso remain in 8th place in the Constructors, with Sauber now just 3 points behind after another good weekend. And Williams, as they have done all season, continue to prop up the table with just 7 points on the board. But that is it for the Russian Grand Prix debrief then, and now that it's all over, what did you make of the race around Sochi? What's your take on the team orders called by Mercedes this weekend? And of course, who was your driver of the day? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below. Now, unless we get any big news in the meantime, I will be back Wednesday at 7 PM UK time for Midweek Live, where we will talk a little bit more about the incident which saw debris hit Pierre Gasly, and I'm sure there'll be plenty more to talk about by then as well. And of course, the next video on the channel will be the Japanese Grand Prix weekend warm-up, and that will be up on Thursday. In the meantime, though, you can follow me on social media. Links to Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and to Discord are all in the description down below. But as ever, thank you for watching. I've been Sean. This has been the F1 Word, and until next time, goodbye.